Welcome back to Lakers Latest. I hope you guys have had a good week. Hope you guys have had a good week on work or whatever else you're doing. It is finally Friday, mercifully so. Thankfully, we've made it. We trudged through the rest of the week. We finally made it here, and thank goodness. Not too many Lakers games going on. Honestly, I think they're on like a 4-day break. Like sometimes I just don't really understand the NBA schedule or like how schedule makers do this. Like some teams just have like 5-day breaks this year, and I'm like, what? Whose idea was this? This makes no sense. So I don't really understand that, but yeah, hope you guys have had a good week. As always, coming to you from Studio City, California, where right now it is about 52 and rainy. I thought we were done with the rain, but I was wrong about that because it poured yesterday and it's been pouring this morning. And yeah, it sucks. I'm over it, and I'm ready for the sun to come back because it's not June gloom. It's not May gray, so I don't know what's going on right now. I would just prefer the weather to be better. Um, but yeah, hope you guys have had a good week thus far. Obviously, the weekend. I'm trying to think of anything coming up. The Lakers, I think, play on Sunday. Like they've literally have like like I don't even. I have to look at the schedule. I think it's like at least a 4-day break. Like I just don't get it. It makes no sense. I mean, there's no reason we need to wait that long. It's probably good for LeBron's recovery. Um, but yeah, no reason for that. But yeah, let's just hop into the first thing on the docket today, which is the Bus family. Obviously, we've known that they gave up primary ownership to Mark Walter. And since then, it was kind of said that Jeannie Buss was going to stay and kind of like the basketball operations role, which she has. And it's kind of been status quo for that ever since they got kind of like switched and the ownership group got changed. And then this is kind of the first time that something has kind of popped up. So it was announced that Joey and Jesse Buss were both fired, who are both kind of stayed on in the scouting department. It was kind of mumbo how it would happen, but they got fired. They both were like, thank you. We thank the Lakers organization so much for all they've done for us. But kind of in the back channels, you're hearing that they're not happy and that they're kind of blaming their sister. They're like, Jeannie kind of just fired everyone. And, kind of at this point, it's just making me think, like, is it time to be done with the Buss family completely? Like, I feel like we should be done with the Buss family completely because at this point, it just doesn't really make any sense. I feel like to keep them, there's nothing kind of holding them to the Lakers at this point. They've obviously sold the majority of ownership, and I think that like there's just only bad things can come from keeping them around. Obviously, Jerry Buss, legend, the Lakers would not be where they were without him today. But he's obviously passed. His children are here. They're a little bit of a mess, like they always have been ever since they took over. And obviously, Jesse and Joey are both gone now, but Jeannie's still there, and even Jeannie, like I just think Jeannie's a bit of a mess too. She's kind of like all over the place, and I just want them gone from the organization. I shout out Jerry Buss, like I appreciate everything he did for the Lakers, I appreciate all that stuff, but at this point, I just don't see what keeping the Buss family here, even if it's Jeannie now, does. It only brings on drama. They've only brought on drama, whether it's her and Phil Jackson, getting married and then unmarried, whether it's like her and bringing on like LeBron and like all this other stuff. Like there's just always some type of drama with the Buss family, and I just feel like at this point, especially after Walter's taken over primary ownership, they traded for Luka, they did all these things. I just feel like it's time for them to just move on from the Lakers completely, and maybe this is a start of that. I can't speak for Jeannie. I don't know what's going to happen with her, but I feel like this could be the lead to maybe some additional things happening, and some additional things that are going to be potentially moving around with the Lakers. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, off the cup, I just think it's time to move on from the Buss family entirely. I don't think they bring anything too much of value to the Lakers. Like you can find someone else to take over the basketball operations than Jeannie. Like you can find that anywhere in the NBA. There's brilliant basketball minds all over the place. There's guys that deserve shots, but I just feel like they've had their time. And I appreciate obviously what their family has done for the Lakers, but it's time, I think personally, to move on completely. So we'll see what happens with that, obviously. So the next thing would be, is Rob Pelinka in trouble? It's an interesting question. because obviously with them moving the buses out and potentially Genie next, and again that's just speculation, but it makes you think like, is Rob Pelinka in trouble? Now, obviously the Lakers didn't have a great end to the season last year, and then you really hope they do better this year. But I guess my thought is like, if it ends similarly to last year, where let's say they lose in the first round in 5 or 6 games, are you to look at Rob and say like, do we really believe in you moving forward? Now, I know obviously he made the Luka trade last year, but I'm going to be honest, I'm not giving any credit to Rob for that. That's just all Nico Harrison being one of the dumbest GMs in the history of professional sports, just trading a literal generational player who's done basically more at his age than almost anyone in NBA history, besides obviously winning an NBA championship. That's part of the reason he's coming to LA. But I'm not gonna be like, wow, what an unbelievable trade by Rob. Like, Nico Harrison is just a moron. That is what that trade comes down to. He is an absolute moron, and he got fired because of it about 2 weeks ago. So I'm happy to have Luka here, but I'm not really going to give Rob credit for that. Now, obviously, the AD trade, shout out him. He's done a bunch of other good things. I like the Smart. I like him getting this offseason. Smart, Aiden, Larabia. Larabia has been solid, so he's done some good things. But I guess it really comes down to the fact that when you look at kind of teams that take over, or not teams, but just like from a top organizational standpoint, like front offices or ownerships that take over, like Pelinka is not Mark Walter's guy. Like, he was here before. Mark Walter didn't bring him on. Like, he was obviously the boss's guy. They brought him on. He's done a good job. But Mark Walter doesn't owe him anything. If Pelinka doesn't do a good job, he doesn't have to keep him. It's not his guy. He could go out and get one of his guys or girls. I'm not saying couldn't be. But just go out and get who you want is what he could do easily. So I don't think it's like a definite that Pelinka's in trouble, but I do think that if the Lakers at the very least don't have at least a better season than they did last year from perspective of the postseason, that Pelinka's job definitely couldn't be in trouble. Now, he also has a couple more months to add to this team, which I think he will. I think they will have to make a trade deadline move at some point, so that obviously we'll see what he does there. But off the cup, I would say that if he did not get it in time, I do think naturally that he would be in trouble. Now we'll see about that. I think that it's going to depend on the moves he makes. It's going to depend on where the Lakers go in the postseason. But for the most part, I do think he could be in trouble if they don't at least do better than they did last year in the postseason. So that'll be something definitely to keep an eye on as we go through the postseason, as we come to the offseason. All right, next, how will the Lakers handle LeBron's minutes? So we saw LeBron play 30 minutes in game one. And the question is, and that's a pretty big amount of minutes to play in game one. So I just think that basically, you have to keep in mind, like, it's super important to preserve his body as long as possible. Like, the Lakers, how they do in the postseason, it's all going to be predicated off of how healthy LeBron is, how healthy Luka is, how healthy Reeves is, how are they playing together. And I think that they need to be very careful that. I've talked about sitting him on back-to-backs before, and I still feel that. I still think they need to preserve him and just be as safe as possible. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle back-to-backs. It'll be interesting to see how they handle the minutes. I think 30 minutes is probably a baseline. But are they going to play him like 35, or is there ever going to be a time where they play him 40, or are they just going to kind of keep him to that, let's say, 30 to 33 minutes a game? It's going to be very interesting to see how they handle it. So I'm looking forward to see what JJ does, and just hopefully LeBron's body can hold up and he can be as healthy as possible going into the playoffs. All right, last thing on the docket today, Bronny. Now, Bronny actually has gotten a little run. Not too much, not any really significant run, I would say. It's been garbage time, or there's been a couple games where he's played in actual minutes. But for the most part, he hasn't really had a chance to do anything and show anything. So the Lakers sent him to South Bay. I don't know if this is a permanent move. I don't think it is. It's probably just send him there for a couple games, then he'll come back up. But it'll be interesting. Look, I think we all know he still needs a ton of development. And again, not to say he couldn't be a good player. He potentially has the potential, but he's got a lot of work to do. And I don't think he's going to be able to do that just sitting on the bench and practicing. He needs to get game action, even if it's not NBA game action. So I do think this is definitely the right call. I'm looking forward to seeing how he plays in the G League. Played solid last year, and we feel like he's all an improved player, so he hopefully should take another step there. But I think this is definitely the right move. I think he needs to get live minute action. I don't think he's going to be able to, fix his game or work on his game a lot when he's not getting a ton of minutes in the NBA. So I definitely think this is the right move. So yeah, we'll see what happens with it there. But yeah, that's what I got for you today, guys. I'll catch you guys next time.